Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Elucid, and I am joined once again by Sai.
Hi, I'm
Indeed.
Sai.
Message from Ulm. Cello here. No guts, no glory. I wouldn't expect lossless Hockmeister expansion. If they weren't dying on occasion, it's not aggressive enough. Late age provinces are worth almost the cost of a Hawk, so risk tolerance is required. Brax is handling our Diplo. As such, Diplo scouting, like last year, has already revealed the starting position of basically everyone. The map file tells us the special starts and Diplo does the rest. In case it's wrong, this is our understanding. Zabalba to the north, Vedheim to the east, Arca to the south, TNC to the west. We actually see TNC flags with the scout. Balba reached out to us about our border. Given we have cloud mages blocking us to our north, that is really convenient. We can press our other borders as we would anyway and come back to that. Fetty also reached out with a friendly message about sending elephant mercs to the border so as to avoid a bump and hash out borders. We can see the candle in the northeast, a candle in the northeast, so it's credible. He says he's taking the large plains, then north, and offering us the southern province plus some compensation. TBD, Brax is hashing that out due to the inequality of that split. Given our heavy bless and bad scales, I'm not keen on any border with less than 2 provinces. Ooh. Expecting 2 provinces of the contested with every single neighbor. I mean, he's got.
Yeah. I mean, if you're focusing on like a very heavy bless build, I actually don't think that's unreasonable at all, right? Like you're trashing your scales,
Right.
you're stronger early, you can be
That's
a bit of
true.
a bully.
But you're being a bully backed up basically by thugs. It's not a. We'll see. We'll see. Bre-
Yeah, it
exactly.
really depends on the nation though. Like Vedheim, I think can actually deal with these guys
Right.
extremely easily because they're protection tank units because a significant portion of their defense is their shield. And Dusk Daggers will
No,
slaughter these
well.
guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dusk
The
Daggers?
only problem is the fire shield isn't going to be super kind to a lot of goblins. But
Yeah, it's basically a trade. You can basically expect to go 1-to-1 with your assassins versus the thug guys. But that's a trade that heavily favors you, given that Ulm has invested
right.
heavily in this bless.
But also,
Um,
Vedheim can
and
make
your
the
thugs,
giant,
like
whatchamacallit, the Jotun dudes. Yeah, you don't want to be
the
running those
Jotuns, yeah.
Hockmeister into Jotun giants. It's, I mean, let me look. Because the
Yeah.
fire shield's not going to do
I mean, the
anything.
Giants don't have great attack.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's
Uh,
Utgard, Vedheim.
that's Utgard. Yeah. The Vadiheim's
Right.
Giants are only the axe
29
guys and
damage.
the
That's going
curlers.
to
Yeah.
damn near one hit. Well, maybe 2, because it's going to be plus 20% after protection. Protection for these guys is.
And also consider the attack thing, right? Like those guys have 13 defense and
Yeah, 13 defense.
yeah, 6 of that is their shield parry. So like against against Dusk Daggers, they have functionally 7
Right,
defense
right,
because,
right, right.
the armor negating damage is just gonna massacre, like, it's gonna go through that anyways. But against the axes, like
Right.
defense is basically real. Like it's 13 defense against, what is it, like,
Yeah,
9
yeah, no, I
attack?
keep doing it.
You're on Utgard again. Well,
10.
I think the
So
axeman
it's
is the same.
13 versus
Oh, 10,
10,
10, yeah.
but it's gonna 2-hit kill him. It's gonna be
And
23
these
protection against 29. So it's gonna be 6, but that 6 is gonna get turned into 8. So they're gonna be doing 8 damage, so it's 2 hits to kill.
But also consider that they don't have the usual attack density advantage that, like, you can typically expect because these guys are size 4. So you at most get 3 guys to a square with a 2 Vedi filling. So I'm not saying that these guys, like, are awful against the Hawkmeisters, but they're not like a perfect counter.
No, but they're gonna trade well, I
Um,
think. I mean,
whereas
gold
I
for
think that,
gold, they're gonna trade really well.
yeah, especially considering that the Hawkmeisters are both where Ulm is
Right.
concentrating its power, given that, they've spending all their bless points on this, and the cap only nature
Yeah,
of
if you
those
wanna get
guys.
really fancy, like you're saying, you take this guy, you put cheat fade on them, you know, and that way they're gonna be a little bit better against the fire shield, maybe a little bit of luck too. Cheat fade luck on a few Dimvedi they're gonna have their way with those Hawkmeisters too. So, but without any buffs, these guys are gonna burn up in
Yeah,
melee real
it's
fast.
Yeah, you do need to buff them, and you do need to kind of time their hitting so that they don't, like, take the brunt
Right.
of Ohm's attacks. But that said, it's 13 attack versus functionally 7 defense in
7
terms of
or
killing.
16. I'll be
16 attack. Yeah, 16 attack versus 7. So yeah, when
yeah.
they get into melee, they'll massacre them. I mean, obviously, we don't even know
Right.
if that is going to be the matchup, but yeah. That you can't bully
Yeah,
Vadeheim.
we could almost leave it at you can't really bully Bettyheim full stop. So
Yeah, the only thing I think that can bully Vade
yeah.
early is their elemental. I don't think any of their neighbors can did.
Fire elementals kind of can, but they don't. Fire elementals aren't great in heat, and then I think they have fire resistance in their bless. So
Or, yeah. Oh,
yeah,
Midgard can do elementals. I'm silly.
and there are way. I mean, because I played a game Miss Vedheim, and I did some testing against their elementals because that was one of the things I was worried about. You actually can deal with air elementals reasonably well. I tested it up to like 8 or 9 air elementals you can kind of deal with. I haven't tested, apocalypse level of air elementals, but that's not super much of a thing in the late age. Like, there's just not as much gems, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. As you said, this is a very bold move to go for those kinds of borders. One that like makes sense given the nature of their build. It's interesting that they say that they're going to need to explain it because to me, it seems pretty clear what like the way this build
Yeah.
works. Right. So that's an interesting thing. So there might be even more to it than
Well, they're going to have to
meets
get
the
these
eye.
provinces.
So that'd be cool.
And
Oh, yeah.
look,
This is definitely a
he took
struggle
a hit
zone.
for 12.
And the other
That was a
thing,
big dice roll.
yeah, but the other thing which is kind of awkward is that the difference here is Stygian skin. Like Stygian
Yeah,
skin
it
would
really
have taken
would've.
this province no sweat.
It really would have. Yeah.
That's always sad to see. Yeah, I think we've seen this army go. So yeah, this is actually a pretty hard province given that they've got heavy cav
Yeah.
and like the actually good heavy infantry.
It's an all melee province, right?
so
A
they
lot
may
of times
take
you
some
have
losses
archers
there.
in the back, and it's like, those are fine. They're not going to do that much. But at the all melee province, you get swarmed.
And I think those were the six. Are those the
Yeah.
16 prot heavy infantry?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the tough guys. So yeah, but I mean they did it, and
Acceptable losses.
just more
Yeah.
power to all. Let's go look at another
This is real
loss.
bad.
Oh, this is real bad. But they are lance blocking in
Yeah.
the way that you said that one should, with the separate squads. They do have the guys all in the same square. I think that this is just too many lances, though.
Yeah.
Oh, that really sucks. Yeah, they're running the coolest build, and they're just not having a
Yeah.
good day with it. That's so unfortunate.
Yeah. It's a lot of lances. I mean, I think because I did I just tested expansion with it, just to see what it would be like. And handicap provinces in general, you want to double up the expansion squads. Like you want to send 4 guys. So it's a little, just from the basic expansion, I did basically the way I did it is you run the squads of 2.
But you also used
I think
Stygian
can't
skin, though,
quite
right?
remember it. I think I did it with Stygian skin in mind.
Yeah. So
Right.
that also makes
But
a
I
huge
think the way you
difference.
want to run this, if you take this build, is you want to run after the easy provinces with 2 of the guys. And once things start kind of firming up, and you're going to be making 3 a turn, right? And once you get as many of the kind of good to get easy provinces where you only need to send 2, then you start sending 4 to take like the heavy calf provinces and stuff, with ideally a tiny bit of lance catching bait. But
Yeah, that's kind of
Right.
how you do expansion in general, right? Like you generally want to take easy provinces, then combine to take harder ones, and that doesn't stop being true
Right.
just because you're expanding.
And
folks.
you can kind of it's probably worth considering this build too, even though you're slamming Hawkmeisters early. It might be worth it to make a couple wolf herds just to make lance catchers for taking the heavy calf provinces. Like maybe just making 2 total. And that'll give you enough wolves where you don't have to waste gold on.
Yeah, only issue for that for me is that you can get indie troops outside of your capital, but you can't get
Yeah.
Hawkmeisters outside of your capital. So it's wasting very valuable cap turns. Well, it might be gold efficient to do it that way. I don't think that I would make that choice. I would use militias like Gicello and Braxo are
Yeah.
doing here.
But I mean, you have to shuffle them back, the logistics of it. Maybe. I mean, I could see doing it either way, but
The more interesting thing to me about that message was that they're playing this as a true Hydra, where both of them are basically fully in control of the nation. And like I mentioned in the last tournament finals when I played against them, it seemed as though it was basically just Gicello, with Braxo kind of like
right.
subbing in once, rather than being like a constant teammate. So that's kind of cool that they're actually like sharing responsibility like that, which actually does make sense because part of the reason that Gicello seemed to have something of a hard time in the very end of the game is just that he was spending a lot of time playing it, which can
Right.
definitely get in the way of life stuff.
So, all with their dreams of 2 provinces on every contested border. Don't know if that's gonna happen, but he definitely could dream big.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very slow start. Yeah, but like especially for this build, which wants to just
right.
get explosive expansion, not
Yeah.
living the dream, as you said.
Coming
Yeah.
coming back to Xibalba, oop, they expand here. All the Xibalba expansions we should really watch because it's just such a pain and a struggle. So the heavy caps tie up with the long
Yeah,
guns. The Aussie kills the back.
this is this is how you want these hits to
Right.
go. Like this is basically perfect. They lose only 3 Zots, they do lose the 5 Long Dead, but this is only a 3 heavy cav province. This is like as easy as heavy cav
Yeah,
provinces can.
that's true. So success. They're getting a bunch of Zots here, which is nice. They're getting some more long dead here.
Jomon has taken the
Right.
entire contested border.
So they slam into this.
I So in Jomon's position, I don't know if I would rush Xibalba right
Oh,
now because
but you would
that's a
clearly think
very
about
heavy
it.
commitment. Like saying like, oh, I would think about it. And then the other thing is that they might just, not rush Xibalba, just be like, you're weak early. I have actual units that kill things. You have to accept these borders. But there's, no reason that to expect Xibalba to accept it, given that they can fly 3 provinces from their capital. So they're like, you have to be a little bit careful about how you approach fighting Xibalba, given that your backline is
Yeah.
essentially
If you
in
take
flight
these
range.
guys here and you move them to this province and you take it, you have ruined Zabalba's game because they don't know if you're going to go on their capital. They don't know if you're going to contest these other things. They're already epically hard expansion because late age Zabalba expansion is not easy. Just got like nightmarish, you know? It's just, yeah, but you know, I think if I were Zabalba and somebody did that to me, I would
Yeah.
just dedicate my game to ruining their position because I would be totally fucked. I think,
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. So with Joven,
right.
I don't think that you can do this. But there are nations where if you're in this position, you can reasonably expect to rush Xibalba and kill them, like
Right.
within the end of the first year. Especially like with those heavy cavalry mercenaries
Yep.
alone are Xibalba's nightmare at this stage of
That's
the
the
game.
truth. That's the absolute truth. So,
I think with if I were like Arcocephaly or I mean Raga is kind of like a gimme, but like even Scales Raga, Gath with with a bless, like there's a bunch of different nations where from this position I would expect to be able to kill Shvalba. I don't think Jomin can, in part just because their real troop army just to the right there, the one with the Samurai Cav,
right.
I don't think that's enough. And their other stuff would need to go through another province,
Yeah.
another indie province.
No, I don't. I think if you
The what
do
you
it,
call it?
you wouldn't actually even kill them right then. You would just ruin their expansion, right? Because they're having to worry about you attacking all their stuff, and you,
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to play to ruin someone else's expansion. If I'm
right?
making that attack, I
Yeah, I
want to
don't
kill
think they
them.
can kill them right here. But I mean, if nothing else,
Yeah,
Zabalba can have his mages patrol and do enchantment one, animate skeletons in a cave. You know,
yeah. I mean, that's not as bad as it sounds. But yeah, I just don't think that Jomin is the nation or that their expansion party, aside from the mercenaries, is strong enough in order to do this. Oh yeah, another assassin
assassin
expansion. That's really
expansion.
cool.
Yeah.
I love seeing
Did they
that.
get? Oh no, they've
Yeah,
been recruiting
and
mermen here. What an awesome pickup that they got a merman village in their cap circle.
yeah, that's going to really help them out for getting their first underwater fort down because they took a dormant pretender for
Yeah,
taking
and
that
while these
underwater
Triton
stuff.
troopers are going to be hard to kill, these Tritons here are going to be super easy. So this is like a free trip into the lake.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting that in LA, indie provinces underwater actually get easier while land provinces get harder. So anyone that has even some modicum of amphibious expansion really does want to look at those water provinces as long as they can actually use them at all. Because if nothing else, like there's still a fair amount of
Yeah,
gold and gem income. So like, even if you can't really use the water, just because the indies are so much easier, it's worth making that, Merman or Ichthyod or whatever, or like if you're
yeah,
Shabalba Mooch investment in order to take the water
yeah.
province.
Okay. What is this? A farm? When? I don't know if I think I might have fucked this up when I did the maps. I have farmland underwater. I don't know if I've seen that before.
I mean, Map Nuke does have
Yeah.
a skin for it, so it's not a normal province type, but I've seen that. I don't think that that actually comes up in
Yeah.
generated map, like with Winter's native map generator, but I have seen it in
Yeah.
custom designed maps to have like specifically rich underwater farms. And I mean, as you can see,
Yeah.
Map Nuke supports it.
That's
They
really
have
cool.
a custom skin for it.
Cool. Okay. So moving along, Jumpman doing pretty well. Arco, still only one expansion party a turn. It's just this starting army. And I don't approve of that. They should have
So
another elephant expansion out by now. I don't like that they're doing some critical mass of these heart companions.
yeah, so I'm gonna say I'm 100% with you. I personally love Arco's elephants. They've got like the multiple repel attacks. They're the best elephant unit. You love those guys, but I also at least appreciate that they're not throwing away heart
Right.
companions. Like if they do want to make the heart companions their win condition, they
Right.
do need to hit that critical mass. So again, not the strategy I would have taken, but they're also at least playing the strategy
That's
that they've
right.
chosen correctly.
Saying this, the other thing worse than a bad plan is switching course from your bad plan midstream, something like that. But yeah, no, they are sticking with the heart companion plan. So props to them.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to Ulm, which means we scoot over a column, and that brings us to Vettiheim. So, ooh, they combined.
So
They had their wolves and
So I think part of this is that they did tell what's his face Olm that they were doing this, and these elephants would absolutely
yeah,
smash Hoffmeister, by the way, because tramplers. But by telling them this, they kind of did give Olm the option to opt for a bump because I don't think that they knew that Olm
right,
didn't border this province yet. So I think part of the reason that they combined is that not knowing what Olm is running, if Olm is doing let's say Ranger expansion, then that can actually be pretty dangerous to send the elephants alone. So by combining it with those Wolf Riders, which by the way, I think moved
oh
from their
really?
cap
Okay, cool.
because those guys have forced survival and very high mat move. So they can do like a one friendly prob deep strike. I don't know if you can even call that a deep
Right,
strike, right? 'Cause
yeah,
they're not going over enemy territory. But anyways, they can reinforce like that. So they might have been thinking like, oh, well, if Ult sends a bunch of Rangers, what can we do to make sure that we
yeah,
win
that
this
makes a
fight?
ton of sense. And I mean, yeah, I mean, this might be able to take an easy province on their own with just the 9 wolves, but they can also fail against the province. So it might just be they wanted something for those guys to do before they went out on their own.
Yeah, but that was like a province that was easy enough that the elephants could have easily, reliably taken that on their own. So I do think that
Yeah,
they made
that's
that
probably
move
true.
with Ulm in mind.
Did they? Oh, Dimvedi ping this year, meaning they.
No, they failed in
Well,
assassination.
yeah. I mean, they pinged it. I know. I meant they
This
were
isn't.
pinging it to like route
Yeah.
the dudes. But
Yeah, so they pinged it the last couple turns with like regular commander script to retreat. So they knew that there was only one left, and then they had an assassin, so they
right.
most likely lost their profit there.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
And then they lost another Dimvadi, which also hurts because those guys are
Yeah,
cap only, and
it sucks.
yeah,
But killing mounted
that's
commanders is a
what
little tricky. It's not a freebie commander snipe often.
yeah, because they're fast enough that they can
Yeah.
close with the assassins right away. I'm surprised, given that they have a forest which isn't labbed yet, so they 100% can recruit Vadi commanders there, which,
Right.
are stealthy. And so, there's upsides to just getting a couple of those guys around. I'm surprised that they used the Dim Vadi to
Yeah,
try
you
to
really
trigger
don't want
that
to
retreat.
because you would want him moving to another province to start assassinating. You know. So that's kind of
Yeah.
a bit of a mistake. They've got scouts here too, apparently, which they also could have used. So
Yeah. So they had options. So I'm not sure why they opted into using the Dim Vadi specifically because they knew what timing they needed in order to
right.
ping that
My
province.
guess is they just forgot about it, and then they
But
just
also,
didn't have anything at the time they could send in, and we're like, all right, well, I guess we'll use this guy.
yeah, that makes sense. And given that their profit had been already killing some of those commanders since we've been seeing that number dwindle, they probably just were pretty
Yeah.
confident that it would go through.
Okay, so that's that.
And they have switched
Yep.
over to
Oh,
Rim
the
Vidi
other thing is,
production.
because I've
So,
done Dimvedi
uh,
like assassin expansion before, it's not super reliable, guys. Like you're gonna lose Dimvedi doing it. They're great units, but they are not super reliable assassins. Like they're gonna suffer attrition. So
yeah. As far as like using them as assassins against players, they become really good just
right,
because you have all the Pokemon items. So like you can give them skeletons, you can give them bats or imps, you can give them vine men. So like yeah, you have your options open for what you give them for support. And because you don't need to give them a weapon, they function very well against thugs and other things that
right.
are normally very hard to kill.
But for indie expansion, expect losses. So
Yeah.
Mi-
Ironically, I think ninjas are a little more reliable than Dinvidi
yeah,
just
those
because of
things are
their
actually
throwing
pretty good.
shuriken. But it also really, yeah, it really does depend on what the
Yeah.
specific commander type is.
So
'Cause,
Micklin
yeah,
going for their second expansion party. How many Jags are they using? They've got two priests here. It looks like.
this looks like it's intended to split off into two different
Okay.
expansion
Yeah, I
parties.
think you're probably right. I may be a leadership issue though.
Oh yeah, I could see that too. Yeah, those guys have only 10. Well,
Right.
the raid priest has 40, so it probably or it
Right.
should be leading both squads. But I actually do think that a Micklin priest leading like a handful of Jags for an easy province site should have no problem. And they definitely heavily loaded up this one. So I think that part of it was just if they haven't pinged this, then they must have moved the scout through this province because they did seem to have a pretty good idea that this was like even though like it's an indie unit or an easy unit type, there are a lot
Yeah.
of units in here, and Jaguar Warriors don't like
Right.
taking mass
And it's also
javelins.
all melee units,
But yeah,
which,
very
you just tend to kind of get swarmed. So,
very easy pop type though, and overwhelmingly militia. So with this critical mass of Jags,
yeah.
no
I mean,
losses, no
well,
problem.
what I'll just say though
Um,
is that there are several types of builds or several types of nations where this all melee infantry is a special kind of pop type to watch out for. Like, this can be one of the harder things to expand into if you really don't like getting swarmed by units, you know? So, because they don't have huge, like
yeah,
heavy cab, you can back position, they'll split up or whatever. Like these guys are basically all going to hit you around the same time. Like watch them go into melee here.
yeah, and no archers for target archers. So this would actually be one of the more challenging provinces for Eagle
Right.
Warriors to expand into,
So
ironically.
they basically all make contact about the same time. But he brought 16 Jags. So this also gives us some insight in his bless or like his build. It probably means he's at 8 candles.
Yeah.
So I mean 8 Jags a turn. And this is a great province for him to get because he's really going to be wanting to get his first forts built. Hasn't started yet, but man, 3 provinces and they're all close to 100 gold each. Oh no, this one too. Holy shit, his average province gold is probably like
Three.
120 or 130 or more if you include the
Yeah,
cap.
or more. No, more. Yeah. And then that southern one can definitely split off because he still has
Right.
easy
He could go
province
like
types
here
around
and
him.
here
Like the
for sure.
Jaguar province. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Things looking real
looking
good.
for Micklin.
I mean, with these gold rich provinces that he's taken, what it means is there's gonna, and I'm pretty sure what Zan's gonna do and Toldi is they're gonna fort their cap circle, and pretty quick people are gonna be having to deal with 30 Jaguars a turn. And that's just a lot of Jaguars to deal with. It's not it's a
One of the things that's interesting is one of the messages that we got recently was someone speculating that people are going to pile on
yeah.
Micklin.
But let's see. So Pan trying to
Oh,
down
that's
kill us with their
hilarious.
Harpy Prophet. That's pretty lame. Oh,
So that to me, that's a little silly because Micklin can
right.
make a lot of candles per turn. Like they're a blood sack nation. You can't you can only dom kill them if
Right.
they aren't
Which in a
tanked.
lot of Dominions games, by the way, is a reasonably good bet. Like I've definitely seen Micklin players get dom killed by Harpy Prophets. But if people know what they're doing, it shouldn't
Yes,
happen ever.
they're yeah. This is one of those things that's like it's one of the
Nice.
very variable things. Like if you're in a very mixed skill game and you know that the Micklin is bad, then you can get away with it. But it's very very easy for Micklin to
Right.
counteract as soon as they notice it.
So we get a Diplo update from them, which is awesome. Gap, I can't talk. It's late for me. Gap, Nap 4, they get 191 and 192, both planes. I keep 179, the big farm, no payments. I asked for a longer nap due to border geography to have more time in case they end their nap. Vettiheim nap 3,
So
they
there,
get the forest, I get the farm and the lake. I pay 3 turns of gold income on one
oh,
of those provinces.
so that's interesting to me because that forest is one of the easier provinces. So to me, that was one of the ones I speculated they could nab
So
next turn.
Vettiheim, they were, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's to their south. It's
Right, right, right.
it's that easy forest
But
province.
that's
Yeah.
the one they negotiated to get, right? Oh, they're giving that one.
No,
Okay, so
they're
they get
giving
the
that one.
farm and the lake. Well, that limits their options. I
I
think what
guess.
you would do is you send an easy group here, or no, but you also probably want to take, well, this is Hoburg, but Burgmeister Guard.
Yeah, those guys have
I
high
think you
defense.
send the
They can be a
main
little
party
annoying.
here,
On the other hand, they're low
and then it
damage.
takes this next, and you take the cap army and reinforce a small party coming in and take this. That's probably what I would do. So you get this one, and then this army can either come take this one, which has been agreed to go to them, or they can come over, fuck with the Balba stuff. Yeah, I mean, they should triple expand. Oh,
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's not something that I'd thought of. But if Gilman does want to kill Shivalba early, they can get Nicklin to help them, bruh. Like that's a
yeah.
very very easy 2v1.
Uh-oh.
I think they're
Yeah,
fine. That's the
I
profit,
thought he
right?
was bleeding. Looks like he's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. So the prophet's got 30
He did
morale,
get
so
hit.
you're
Oh,
not
he's
really worried about
-6.
him. Oh, he doesn't have a second form. Oh, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
That's their profit gone. And they're not in huge trouble. You generally want to replace that guy anyways. But those 6 Jaguar
Yeah.
warriors need to
So
get
it's
picked
like
up
they're
now.
definitely going to triple expand. They're definitely not going to triple expand now. So
Yeah. I mean, it's not that big of a deal since, like I mentioned, like that guy, you want to replace him relatively quickly anyways. But yeah, this is definitely too early to lose him.
yeah, so they'll probably just make an indie commander and then shuffle him off to meet up with some reinforcements. So I think you still do this. I think you combine cap and this, you take this, you send this guy with, probably 13 Jags to take this and this, or maybe come over here and take this. And then next turn, commander picks up these guys and meets whatever you make in the capital to take this.
Unless you've agreed with Joman to rush
Right.
Shivalba. Which I don't think that they are, again, because, I'm sure he would have mentioned it if he was. But, like,
Right.
that's what they were planning on doing.
Yeah.
You have the chance.
Okay. So things going according to plan for Micklin. Things looking pretty good.
You want it?
Oh,
Want to go
right,
back to that
right.
message? Because we did kind of cut off.
After Zabalba, they get the farm. I get the cave mountains and mountain.
Yeah.
So
they are not
Right.
rushing Shivalba. Unless they're planning on doing a nap break.
I
Which
don't think Toldy will.
they could.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah, I don't think they will. But
All
they
right.
could.
Gath, who's next? We'll go ahead and read their message. Micklin rushed the large farm between us, and I'm now very glad we didn't do the same, as a bump would be a disaster. I made a deal with them where we can take the other 2 provinces between us, and he gets a nap 4 that he wanted. At this point, it's fine, since we're quite weak against him, so I need some time to fix it. This will work for a while, though obviously with this bless, growth 3, rich lands, it's a bomb on a relatively short timer. Our other neighbors realize it too, so we'll return to this after turn 10. Okay. So Gath has eyes on Micklin, is what this basically means.
Yeah, so I don't think that he might not know that Micklin is running this Jaguar build, but those Javelin Giants are very good against Jaguars.
Yeah.
The guys they're using for their expansion. Just because they're just high damage javelins, and Jaguar warriors don't like ranged attacks, but they also have fairly low protection. So like for them, crossbows are less of like a thing, just because
Right.
the rate of fire is a little bit lower, and their protection is so low anyways that the armor piercing has slightly lower value. Whereas comparatively, these guys deal with armor just by doing more damage. So the 17 piercing damage hits are actually going to really wreck
I'm not
Jaguars.
sure if these guys, I bet you Jaguar Warriors win gold for gold against these guys with that bless.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, that's comparing heavily blessed sacreds against your
Yeah, I
heroic
know,
true.
but what I'm saying is I think Micklin is going to be able to have more Jaguars than they can have of these guys too.
Yeah, very early game, you're probably right. I'm more just saying that, like, It's not a disaster to pick Mictlan for your first war or to like run into them or whatever. Like, with your expansion party versus like 16 Jaguars, obviously you
Right.
lose that bump. But it's not like an unwinnable situation because the units that you're already using are kind of what you would want to recruit
Yeah.
anyways to
Yeah.
fight them.
Okay. Keep. Oh, he's pinging this. Good move. Figuring out there's 11 heavy cap, which is, something you can deal with. He's pinging this one too. A little easier with 7 heavy cap.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of
Yeah.
players doing that, which I really like. That everyone's really proactive about
Which is,
checking out
yeah.
the
I mean,
UGs.
one miscalculation on a heavy cap province can really ruin your whole early game. It really can. Because, I mean, yeah.
As
We've
we've
seen.
seen.
Well, I mean, even with like Ulm, their early game isn't ruined. If you're a scales nation and you're really counting on like getting your cap circle cleared, and you send your army into something you think is like maybe 5 heavy cap, and it turns out to be 15, like it can actually just end you. It's so oppressive. Okay, so they take this. I don't think there's much else going on with Gath.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that Gath recognizes that they're vulnerable early with this
Right.
build. Like they do see that because they're using, these priest guys for their research, which means they don't have an early game mage core, which they can instantly
Wait, are
mobilize if they
these
get
the?
rushed.
Oh, they are. Yeah, yeah.
Those are the
Gotcha.
non-mages.
Yeah, it is a super greedy build. They did not have a lot of they don't have good sacreds. They don't have perfect scales. They don't have any mages. Yeah, they're doing smart to keep their head down.
Do you want to get back to that message? Because we
Okay.
also interrupted this one, I think. Yeah, because they pointed out that the crystal Amazons are there, but more importantly, they negotiated to get them, which is very
So
interesting.
they've agreed with. I mean, that makes sense. Crystal Amazons aren't super valuable to Joman. Joman gets the air astral cross path already. So
Yeah. But yeah, it definitely bodes well for Gas early game borders because they seem to be on good terms with two of their neighbors already.
yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Okay. Very cool. Moving back to Utgard, are they able to?
Actually, Gath Gath is going to have literally every path. They're going to have air and water, which are the two paths that they're
Yeah.
normally missing.
I mean, and with I mean, this nation's going to have really fast research, or pretty fast research. So they'll probably be able to. I mean, it's a pretty good build to take advantage of it, right? They're going to have a lot of money and a lot of research, and so they can probably figure out ways to use these mages.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I'm really excited to see Gath doing things that we don't normally see this nation get to do. So no clue what exactly that's going to
Yeah.
be, but it'll be different.
I mean, he mentioned here, using the Crystal Amazons to do a shed, which was kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, blood and power. When I played Gath, I actually very specifically rushed air nations to empower blood into, or to empower
Oh.
air into blood in my case, because getting that Sheddy access is so
Yeah,
powerful.
and I mean, honestly, with this build, the shed are even more appealing because his bless isn't. I mean, his bless is nice on Sayer. Shed aren't sacred.
But his bless also gives his front line shock resistance, so they can tank the friendly fire more
Absolutely.
easily.
Sorry for the sneeze. Yeah. So,
Oh, I'm sure your descripting's
we'll
going to
see.
catch that.
See, pretty sure there's gonna be a sneeze in there. I don't think sneeze is registered under the filler word removal.
Oh no, it doesn't catch ambient noises. Oh, look, they actually did the human and giant positioning correctly this time, where they have exactly
that was
one
really
human
nice.
sharing the
Let's
square
watch
with
that
each
again.
giant. Yeah, so one interesting thing is you actually get this square filling naturally if you alternate recruitment. So if they're in the same squad and you recruit giant human, they do fill in the order that you
Yeah.
see on that combat screen. So you don't need to do the humans behind the giants in order to get them to
Right,
share
they
like that.
do. I think these guys have a little faster movement than the humans. Yeah, the humans are combat speed 9 and these are 14. So they will tend, as long as the humans don't start off in front, the giants will tend to kind of like get ahead and then the humans will backfill, which is kind of perfect. But if you allow the humans
Yeah.
to get in front, the giants can never get in front of them.
Right.
Right.
Unless there's only one per square. So like if they're filtering through the giants, then it still works out okay. They still lost a Gamherd, even with perfect positioning, even with a relatively easy province type. Yeah, it's just the bless
Well,
being
the thing that
inadequate.
concerns me about this is How many garms is he making a turn? Like,
Yeah, he's only got
if
6 in
if you
this
take
army.
a regen bless and you're doing garm expansion, but you only have like you should be making 9 a turn. I can't remember how many of your cap circle you have to hit to be able to max out recruitment. I don't think you can do 9 right at the
I mean,
beginning. I
these
think
guys are
you need at least 1 province, but you might need 2.
well, I think you're saying that from the perspective of, like, a Turmoil Sloth 3 build
Um,
though, right? Like, you're talking about, like, a
well,
full-on Garm Blast
it's
build?
really just the sloth, but yeah, sloth
Because
3. Yeah, with sloth 1, you might be able to max it
yeah.
out at the beginning.
Yeah, so he's not running a Garm build. Like, this is not a big enough bless to, lean on Garbs, and he's not running High Dom. So he's not planning on fighting a first war on these guys. I think he's really just running N7 for the bigger convenience. Like, that's the only thing that makes
Okay,
sense to me.
well, it remained to be seen. Maybe I sent him a message asking him to explain the bless to us. Maybe he did it already. I'm gonna pause real quick. All right, so yeah, we went and looked. No message from Utgard. So yeah, we'll have to see. It might just be for. It will be good on them once they get other buffs in. Like once they can get body ethereal or protection or other things, it'll start to shine more. But right now, it's a yeah.
Yeah, so part of the reason that I am especially worried is that with the slow start, they're going to have slow fort timings, which means a lower mage count and therefore slower research. And they're not going to hit that critical mass of mages in order to really be able to take advantage of this bless by having a ton of community masters. Add on to that the fact that
Yeah,
Vadheim is their northern neighbor, which basically eats
right.
Utgard normally. Like even an Utgard with like what I would consider a stronger build is very like they don't want to board a
Yeah.
Vadheim. That's one of their worst matchups. They're in a very, very dangerous
There's also
position
really weird
already.
shit that Eheim can do. Like you could probably test it out and figure out like what is the research I need so that like a Gaija with like 2 Gaijas and s- let's say 6 Rim Veti and then like 4 of the Spearmen or Herd Veti or whatever that are on Guard Commander. Like how many of the like will that how much research do you need for that to kill the cap PD? Which I imagine.
Oh, you're talking about
Yeah.
stealthing it so
Because
that they can
with
capture.
Utgard,
Yeah, yeah.
especially if they have a slow start like this, you stealth knock the like if you are turning the cap on and off every other turn and they're planning on making garms, like it's just over. Like,
Yeah, but like tricks aside, just like straight war versus straight war, which again, Vadheim does not have to do
right.
because they're a stealth nation. As Lucid pointed out,
Oh,
like
of course,
Vadheim
yeah.
still
Yeah.
wins that
So
matchup.
yeah. But being next to Vedheim as Utgard is nightmare fuel. And it's one of the things we were talking about in the build. There are only 3 if Vedheim is in the game, there's really only 3 nations, in my opinion, that are allowed to go cold 3, and it's Calum, Atlantis, and Veti. Utgard is not on that list. And
And
Raga.
Raga.
Sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, with Raga, they're essentially relying
Raga.
on hitting an air elemental timing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Raga. If I were Cold 3 Raga and I found out I was next to Vedheim, I'd be pretty sad. But it's probably not unplayable.
yeah, fair. And Culture Raga is not really the norm,
Right.
anyways.
We will be having the Cold 3 Raga video going up on my channel. Probably before this goes up though, so people will have seen it. So no,
Oh, you're playing Cold Raga?
Demosthenes, who's playing Tianchi, he plays Cult Raga, and it's a really cool.
Yeah.
He he's got really good ideas on it. I by the time I finished watching, like, because I basically was at the beginning, I was like kind of coaching him, but mostly just kind of like reviewing turns with him. By the end of it, he had me convinced that Cold Raga is stronger than Hot Raga by a margin. So
I think that they're both good, but that
yeah,
they're very different nations. That Hiraga is a timing-based nation, that you hit these very specific timing goals with Sulfur Haze and Wailing Winds and Firestorm. So you're kind of like more evocation line focused than most other nations, where you basically bridge the gap from Sacred Rush to magic-based Power Spike, and then, transition to normal
yeah.
Blood Death Wailing Wind stuff.
Well, you'll enjoy the Cold Raga. The Cold Raga is
I think
fucking
Hiraga's,
strong, man. There's some really
yeah.
cool stuff you can do. I'm pretty excited about it.
Its one weakness is a magic duel,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's
I
true.
do like both Ragas.
Do I have to? Oh, I don't have. I can't click on it here.
I just think Heat Raga is
Well,
like
I
easier to do well with,
it's
like
the
both from a
is it
very
the
early game
Master?
perspective.
What's the? It's not the fancy Air 3 mage that he actually focused on early. It was the other dude. I don't think that. Yeah, I don't
The
think
Air One guy.
it has a lot of cross paths. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
no Raga in
we're
this game. Yeah,
there's no Raga in this game, so
so Vettiheim, we've covered this. Okay, we're done. So Utgard, one expansion a turn, turn 5. Hopefully, we see them do 2 expansions next turn. Otherwise, it's going to be real sad.
not one expansion a turn, one expansion total.
Oh, wait,
Oh no, that
is that
yeah,
right? Oh my God.
that's their
Oh,
only other province.
oh God, you just have to say it in the most painful way, Sai. Oh, Squeako, you're hurting me, man. Oh, and Squeako is actually a really good player. He never does. He always chokes in the
Yeah,
finals, though. I don't know what he's doing.
but he's managed to make it to the
Yeah,
finals 3 years in a row, though. So
he
he
definitely
plays the game
does.
right sometimes.
See if we can see.
So Gartha also getting Crystal
Yeah,
Amazons, also very good for them because they don't naturally have air at all, and their astral magic is very limited. But with their limited astral magic, they do
right.
have the Earth crosspath. So the way that Agartha tends to approach communions is largely matrix based, while thirsting heavily for those astral pearls. So having the Crystal Amazons this early is amazing for them because it gives them a reliable communion slave unit and it gives them an additional path, which, naturally it's always nice to add air to
Yeah.
your nation. So both just good to have in
I
general
mean,
and great
especially for a
synergy.
crossbow-based nation, right? Like, Wind Guide, Aerofend,
Oh
these things
yeah.
are going to do wonders for a crossbow-based nation. So,
Yeah, a cross-based nation that
right.
already has
Yeah.
flaming arrows. So yeah, very, very
Yeah.
happy to have these.
And then here you can see just Cave Drake expansion, pretty mindless.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned this before that like Aaron's self-proclaimed strength and, in practice strength is his diplomacy, but he knows the game.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Expansion with Agartha, not super tricky, just make Cave Drakes. And that's what he's doing. And that works, I think, against pretty much all indies. I don't think there's really too many things you have to mix it up for.
Yeah, and unlike most nations, because the Garthans have natural dark vision, they have an easier time taking these cave provinces, which normally, because of
Right.
the attack and defense penalty, makes these cavemen extremely dangerous. And I mean, the cavemen are still pretty
Right.
dangerous just because they hit very hard and you're using protection tank units. But Agartha has, I think, a slightly easier time with them because their crossbows
Right.
can still shoot fine underground.
That's a good point. But yeah, probably save this one for later. This probably is one of the few indie types that you don't want to just run 10 Cave Drakes into.
Right, yeah, you probably do with some ranged units,
Uh,
which, is fine because he's going to want crossbows to fight other players anyways. So when he starts making that crossbow transition, that can be one of the provinces that
Yeah,
he uses that
absolutely.
troop type to handle.
So he's got that. Oh, Midgard, double expansion.
Finally.
Oh, you get a bump. Our first bump of the game. Hot player on player
Like, huh.
action. So Midgard is coming in with these are Huskarls, right? Yeah.
So it looks like he split off the sacreds that were accompanying his starting army, which is interesting. I don't know why he did that because we don't see them hitting another province this turn.
Yeah, there were like 4 of them, right?
Yeah, so he had sacreds plus his starting army. I mean, that's where they were. And then he's hitting another province with a different group of sacreds. So I actually don't know where the bands that were with this army went. And yeah, Wolf Brothers have a really good defense, but they're fighting against a prophet here. So, when you're dealing with something that's never going to miss and is dealing armor negating damage, then that's
Right.
pretty
And
hard
I
on
think
mundane
ultimately
troops.
it came down to a morale roll. So, yeah.
Right. I was more pointing that out because if the prophet had not been there, the Brothers would have
Yeah.
rolled those Huskarls.
Which is interesting because, yeah, okay. Now that's a lot more gold Vettiheim brought. Okay. But that's definitely a disappointing loss for Vettiheim. Certainly something they can kind of handle in stride, but not something they're excited about.
Yeah, nothing unique lost there, but it
Yeah.
does slow down their momentum a bit. It's also interesting that they bumped it all because everyone knows where everyone is. So like you would think that given some of the messages that we've got, that everyone's
Right.
talking to all their neighbors at this point. This is kind of showing that Midgard and Vadihheim are being a little bit less proactive about their
Yeah.
diplomacy than some of the other players.
Here they expanded with just elves. It looks like they've got, I wonder if these guys are lance catchers or crossbow catchers or what are they doing up here?
Yeah, I mean, they're, all of the above. They're the bait squad. They are not using the guard commander attack archer thing. So not how I would use Veneer to expand. And this is also a huge number of the Veneer. Like he's bringing 11 of these sacreds. Admittedly, this is a hard province type, so no
Well,
shame
and
to
he's
doing
brought two
that. Like I
commanders,
think
so I
bringing
think
that
he's
many
planning
Veneer
on
does
splitting
make
them
sense.
up.
Yeah. Yeah, so that does make sense. And those guys also sail, so he has a bunch of options if he wants to be cheeky and start invading Pangaea,
Yeah,
which I don't think he
definitely
wants
not.
to do, but yeah, fun that that's kind of a possibility
Yeah, he's
for him
got a
here.
lot of options.
Pangaea did take
Right.
the contested province. So there's only one, what I would say, real contested province between them, which is the one that Pangaea is on now. The other ones are the water province, which neither of them have super easy access to, and the one that's 2 away from Pangaea and 3 from Van. So I think that like the one that Pangaea already had to the west there,
Yeah.
120. I think that one was like solidly in Pangaea's domain, and the one province that they could argue
Right.
over is the one that Pangaea just took.
So that's looking pretty good for Pangea. Let's make sure we didn't miss anybody here. The messages.
Did we
This
see
actually
the
is a
Atlantis
lot
message?
of. Yeah, we haven't done Atlantis yet though for expansion, so we'll do that when we get there. This is a lot of Dryad hoplites and a lot of satyrs. This I don't think was for the Indies. This was for a bomb.
Yeah. Could be, yeah. Depending on how large the province looked on the scouting report, he might have thought that he just needed it to deal with that many melee
Yeah, but this
infantry.
would have rolled probably a van bump. Because yeah, these guys have javelins and stuff, and all probably would have worked pretty well against them.
Yeah, and they do have 2 commanders there, so
Yeah.
they can split it up if they need to. But that said, they don't border any province, or they can't attack any province other than the one in Van's cap circle. So consolidating like that does kind of slow where they
Right.
can hit next.
They pinged this, and they pinged this. So again, we're seeing a lot of. Well, this wasn't a heavy cav province, but we're seeing the heavy cav provinces get pinged.
Interestingly, Pangaea has started
Yeah.
that switch over to the scale troops, the Centaur
So yeah, that's
Cataphracts.
cool because those guys are going to be able to just roll.
I think that's a little.
These guys, they don't. I mean, it's a little tough to do when you just have one of your cap circle provinces cleared, but
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think it's a little early for that. I think that you want, 1 or 2 more provinces from your cap circle before you make that transition. Because for their resource cost, your Dread Hoplites are by
Yeah.
far your best expansion unit.
it looks like they got some mercs though this turn, so that's going to help a lot. So
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
they'll be able to
Yeah.
take these provinces, and I mean, honestly, they don't really have a lot of high resource provinces in their cap, but I like this one.
Yeah, but at the time that you're making the decision to bid on the mercenaries, you don't know that you're gonna win. So I think I would have waited a little bit longer before switching from
Yeah.
the Dryads to the Centaurs. But that said, I mean, the Centaur are still amazing units, so
Yeah.
they should still be able to do just fine.
Okay, so that's happening with Pan. With Mérignon, they have dodged this. Okay, they did.
They
So.
did sail. They did sail. That's not the province I would have sailed
Oh.
to, but it's an interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, they sailed onto a hard province.
Oh wait, is this the guy? This is the guy. The last
Yeah, that's the
conquistador.
conquistador. So they are used. So they're using the mercenaries, or not mercenaries, the retinue units,
they're
and
bringing all their
it
mages.
looks like the
Holy
guys
fuck.
that he summoned. What are the
Phantasmal
mages
warrior.
casting? That's what
Okay,
I
I
want.
mean, that's good for
Phantasmal
soaking a
warriors.
lance charge.
That's their plan.
I mean, they're okay.
That's
And they've got
fascinating.
air shields, so they're less likely to get picked off by crossbows.
That
I
is
mean, that
not what I
fucking
would have
works.
expected, but that it worked.
This,
That's really
I
cool.
mean, this is so fucking balls to the wall. Because if this lost and they retreated, they all die in their retreat. There's no retreat through the sails.
Yeah, so all those units that did retreat did die, unfortunately.
How many retreated?
but
Oh,
the other,
the-
yeah, so they lost 6, 7 guys. Like they lost a couple of units.
yeah, those are retinue units.
Oh, those are retinue units. No, they're fine. All right, yeah, no, they didn't lose
clutched
anything
the
to that
shit
retreat
out of
issue.
this.
And that was a hard
Yeah,
province. too.
13 heavy cav and crossbow. Jesus
I had-
Christ.
I've seen Phantasmal Warriors cause issues when you're attacking a Cloud Mage province, but I don't think I've ever seen a player use them to expand. The closest thing to that I've seen is I've seen someone kill a fetish, the mindless Shotgun Pretender, by using Illusion Spam
Mhm.
because it turn timered, but I've never seen them used for expansion.
Yeah.
So that's
I
really
mean, this
cool.
was very MacGyver-esque. It's like he's like locked in a room, like a dark room without any of the fucking tools he needs. And it's like, come up with a good move. And he made this happen.
Now, the question is, looking at the map, is this a province that Marignon can keep? Because this is far, right? Like they've got two
Let me
provinces before they can
change that
reinforce
because
it.
this is a province Marignon must have. He has to control these two. If Atlantis gets in his lake, he's basically lost. And he has to hold these two provinces from Atlantis or he loses the game.
Okay, yeah, that's a reasonable perspective. No, yeah, and but Atlantis also
Right.
hasn't started expanding in this direction. So that's also interesting, is that Atlantis has not opted into trying to fight Marignon early, in spite of it having, some seemingly
Right.
natural advantages, given that Marignon can't defend that lake. And yeah, like I said last turn, Atlantis did actually opt for that
Oh
lake that
yeah.
borders Pythium. So I don't know what their diplomatic situation's like, whether,
Now, let's see.
but I guess
Founder reviews expander this turn.
okay,
Also decide on borders with Joman. I get 125 and 226. They get 200.
interesting. Yeah, so that is very interesting. So, do you know if they're
So
planning,
Joman gets this
since
and
they haven't talked
Atlantis
about their
gets
borders with
this.
Erythia?
Yeah.
I mean, that's Atlantis's lake, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, so they didn't mention their relationship with Pythium, which I think is kind of important because that kind of changes the flavor of grabbing that lake. Like, is that their safe little research pocket, or is that, like what you had said, their threat that prevents Pythium from
Right.
wanting to go to war with them? And then along the same lines, they've spotted Erythia's expander, but they also haven't mentioned making borders with Erythia. So that like one of those two might not even be their first war target. And they also haven't mentioned Marignon at the same time. So this sounds like Jilman most likely approached them for the
Yeah.
borders, from a guess. So Atlantis is another player that doesn't seem to be super proactive about their diplomacy.
So far, at least. I mean, yeah. I'm pretty sure all of
Yeah, we
these
don't know.
coastal nations have been talking to each other, at least some. But he might not be going the extra mile and really focusing on, like, maybe they're initiating contact. But
Yeah, we are. That's part of what we don't see.
move up to Pythium.
I think we skipped
We finished it because we
some of
got
the
to
column though.
Marion to Agartha. So I was just checking that.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
good timing.
Pythium, he's moved Retarii over here. His competences, which were up here, moved south into the cap circle. And he's got few Retarii up to eat lance charges and put a little bit of a hurting.
Yes, that's his reinforcement. Yeah, and Retaria
Yeah.
are actually pretty good against heavy
This is
cap.
pretty well
So,
scripted.
very, yeah. Outside of that one initial thing where he was using the Retarii to fight barbarians, which he did explain, as you mentioned, that, he was going for that commander snipe. I think
Yeah.
Pythian
Wait,
scripting's
why
been
the
very
fuck does
solid
he have
during the expansion
three
phase.
commanders here? Explain this to me.
So one of them was his prophet leading the expansion party. One was the one that had the Retarii, like the remnants of his other
Oh,
expansion
okay.
party to the west of his capital. And then one is the
Okay.
reinforcements from his
That makes
capital.
sense. And then he moved these guys over here. Presumably, he's going to try to take these trolls out with that. That's my guess. Oh, he could maybe take this.
Yeah, could be. I mean, he's got. The other thing which is interesting is that he's using the Solari units
Right.
for his foreign recruitment option, which I tend not to do just because they are more expensive. But you do get stats out of that. Usually, I would only get the Solaris if I value their fire resistance, just because of that gold differential. Because you have options for what you're using for your foreign recruit.
Yeah, you can get these guys as well. These are the other ones.
Yeah, and so those guys are
Right.
only 10 gold, and the limited Solarises
Yeah.
are 14, I think. So yeah, very big resource difference, or sorry, gold difference. Like that's 40% more. So that if you value that fire resistance, it can absolutely be worth it, right? Like if you're, planning on doing or running into Firestorm, that's kind of more of like a late
Right.
game thing of like if someone's
Or
counting
if you're
like
doing a
Scale Spam with
protection
that.
strat, right,
If
where
you,
you just want to drop protection and not worry about a fire malice.
right. But in either case, if you're not taking fire damage,
Yeah.
then that doesn't really matter. So you like looking at that, look at their neighbors and like who actually can deal fire damage. So Atlantis
Atlantis
obviously
can.
can't.
Bigger fire
Arco
mages
kind
too.
of can.
Yeah.
The Forgiving Fathers. I guess they
Yeah.
can. They do have a fire random, but
And you put them
like,
in a communion.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess they could do size
I mean, they
three.
could do flaming arrows. Like they're,
Yeah, I guess they can
I
do
mean,
stuff.
you don't know,
Yeah, I guess that's just not what I think of when
right?
I think of Atlantis as magic. Although I guess if they're going
Yeah.
Conjuration first, for like an underwater ward, then size
Arco
three fire
has it
elementals are
too, I believe, on
consideration.
mystics, right? Yeah.
On the yeah. So Arco can do fire. TNG has, I believe, a little bit of fire. I think that they can use a one path random on some of their
I
mages.
can't remember. I
I
don't
can double
remember
check that
that.
though. I'm yeah. I could actually be wrong because I know that MATNG gets it. Celestial Masters don't
Yeah,
get it. Okay.
MATNG gets it on
Okay.
the
So they
Imperial
don't.
Alchemists. So
Yeah. Okay. So
okay,
they
so
actually don't
TNG
have it.
doesn't.
Interesting.
Agartha
Um.
obviously does. So 3 out of 4 neighbors has it. It's,
Yeah.
none of them are like fire powers though, like Abyssia or something. But
Yeah. It's just an interesting thing that like that they've opted into the gold expensive units in order to get. I mean, maybe they just really value that +1 attack and defense.
yeah,
That's the other possibility. And then they also do have high morale. So I guess there are other things that are like the upside. But like I mentioned, usually the only reason that I would buy them, given that they cost 40% more gold, is just for that resistance.
the other thing that I think is worth pointing out is he's still hitting the Retarii button a lot, which that you want him to
Yeah.
firm
Well,
up your parties. I don't like. I like the idea of double expanding the first turn with it. I don't like the idea of Retarii only expansion, like where you're sending out entire parties of it past that. Mm, Because you kind of just, it's like every time you take a swing, you end up like losing all of your momentum, and you need actual armies.
yeah. Yep. And he's also not running an Awake Expander, which yeah. So he doesn't have that. He doesn't have a Bless. So his expansion, I kind of get it that like I need to clear my cap circle as soon as possible and then start making units. I think that's kind of his mindset here.
Yeah. And to be fair, these Retarii that he had made aren't going to like solo take any of these. I mean, this is a tough province. It looks like a lot of crossbowmen. This is a tough province, probably. So
Yeah. So I'm thinking that his train of thought is how do I maximize troop production
right,
by turn, right? And like taking your cap circle quicker by hitting the Retaria button for more turns lets you do that faster than like while you won't have those armies out quite as quickly overall in terms of like your expansion, you are going to have more troops on the field by taking your cap circle a
yeah,
little bit
that's true.
faster.
But like, I mean, this party isn't coming out to take the cap circle, right? He's gonna go be like, "Oh, I'm gonna take the trolls or something."
Yeah.
I don't like that. I do think these are hard enough. You're probably gonna have to make some Retarii to slam into these. So, but I mean, maybe like competences do pretty good in
Yeah.
a lot of these matchups. But
The other thing that's interesting is that we haven't seen mages with these armies because you kind of do want to send mages
right,
out early to start building your labs. So especially for these cap circle provinces, if you can have your mages cast anything, you may as well send them with
yeah.
early, right? Because you need to
I
have the
think
mages in
full
the province
scales
build
is
the lab
better
anyways.
than this. I think this gray one build, unless he has he might be planning on doing like Mother Oak or something, unless he has some specific spell or path access he wants really early. I think you're better off having more troops, and because you can make a lot more
Yeah.
Retarii if you have Order 3. And
Yeah, I prefer the hound, potentially hound with hard skin if you want to use hydras. But yeah, I like it going for get big early and then
right.
slam those labs.
Yeah, I don't think the Awake Researcher, unless he has some very specific target
But yeah,
for
even
what he
just
wants to
scales
do
would
with
probably
them.
be better long term.
We'll see. I don't think you
Yeah.
make it to the
So
finals and pick the gray ones as an Awake without having a very specific plan.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that, so I do like awake researchers in general. I just think that with Pythium specifically,
Yeah, but
you
that's
can
what I'm
get
saying.
faster
I
research
don't.
without.
This build
Um,
clearly is not
yeah.
for optimizing research. The only way, in my opinion, this build makes sense is you have something very specific you want these great ones to cast. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. TNG.
Yeah, they're just hitting things with heavy cav and heavy cav sacreds.
Hold an attack. Heavy Cav go burr. They kill their first squad and then switch
Yeah.
back into archery. That's probably why the one attrition he took was actually probably due to that stupid AI. So, what's the unit that THE can make for those?
The
Do
unit?
any of these not? Oh no, they all have. I guess you'd have to put one of these guys in to turn off ranged.
Oh, you mean to turn off their archery? Yeah. No, you use
One
the
of
shield
these
guys
guys.
for that.
Yeah.
The cheapest shield guys, yeah.
And then here they lose an archer and a footman. Pretty efficient.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, that we've been seeing this
Yeah.
army running around. That's their starting army plus the.
Oh, I think
sacred
these
guys.
were in the same tile. So after they kill this first
Wow.
squad, they should continue in melee. Yep. Here they go. They didn't switch into archer mode. What happened to this guy? Is he stupid? Crippled. Okay. I thought he had dementia or
crippled.
something.
Yeah. Yeah, not as debilitating on a unit as it is on a mage, but still very bad when you've got
Yeah.
guys that are wasting their turns.
Ceremonial
Maybe the
master
general
assumed
inspector
size. Oh, I guess
That's the big mage, or the cap only mage, I should say, because they're not really that much bigger anymore. Oh no, that's the
We're
priest.
seeing some weird scout
Huh.
report here.
It's the celestial masters that
Yeah.
are. No, that kind of makes. Yeah, that is a very weird scout report.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing they just have two of them for
Right.
leading expansion parties.
Probably getting their dominion up in their capital or something. But they're only holy one, right?
Yeah, because I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking celestial masters, but
Yeah.
no, those are the each one priests.
Okay. So, I mean, double expand, they're not killing it, but they're doing okay. Erythia taking this with very few losses. This is a heavy cap province. We'll watch this. Right.
Yeah, and those are the mercenary spears. So yep, just using
And
them.
this is this isn't the prophet. So he's doing smite expansion with this guy.
That's their. So while it's not a prophet,
Right,
that
right,
is
right.
their king. So like you can recruit the princes, and then if you recruit a prince and a princess, then you get a king and a queen for the first ones that marry. And then after that point, you want to avoid having the people sharing provinces because they do intrigues and assassinate each other.
Minigame.
It's kind of this weird little mechanical thing that Erythia's got going. But the first guys that you get give you some bonus H3s, which is nice.
Okay.
And yeah, this thing should just truck through it.
And the other thing you really worry about is getting a bleeding affliction. But yeah, he did pretty good.
Which is, relatively uncommon, actually. Like, in order to hit that, just because his base hit points is so high, you need to take a really nasty hit. So, interestingly, the Sacreds for Erythia are some of their worst units comparatively for fighting underwater, just because they lose the awe effect, and they have a short sword instead of a spear like the other guys. So, I mean, they can still do it. They've got, really good armor, good base stats, and they don't have any, penalty for fighting underwater because they turn into true amphibious units in spite of their having I think they, on land, they still have a core amphibian tag. Once they go underwater, they lose it, which is kind of weird. I know that's true for the, Yeah, so it's one of those weird things, where you look at them and you think, oh, they'll get a stat penalty underwater, but nope, they're underwater for.
Do they have the other encumbrances? I think it's a little better too. I think maybe it was just temperature scales or something, but it's 8 instead of 9. So this one is 9.
Yeah, the base encumbrance for some mermen units are reduced in the underwater form.
So, yeah, I mean,
so yeah, they say that they're even worse than they are, but yeah, they do lose the awe though, and they don't have a great weapon for underwater fighting compared to the hoplites. So typically, the way that you play Erythia when you're using the Sacreds for expansion is you keep those guys on land and you use your bronze legions essentially to take the underwater provinces. That said, this Erythia has been expanding really well.
Yeah, they're killing it in income. They're 20% ahead of everybody else. Right.
And that's all because of the expander. Are they the only nation that took an Awake expander? I think they
Yeah, I
are.
mean, Atlantis took. I mean, yeah. Oh, the Ghost King. The Ghost King isn't out yet.
They're
I
most
was
likely going
expecting
to,
to see him this turn.
yeah. But yeah, no, he's the only one using an Awake monster. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. Because there's multiple other nations in this game for which I would have taken one. Like I mentioned, I probably shouldn't keep reiterating, but I absolutely think it's good on Pythium if you're doing a research rush. And I think that is also viable on a bunch of other nations too. Like it's viable on TNG because while they absolutely do not need it, because of the foreign recruitment, you can kind of snowball off of that. And so if you want to like just do a cavalry spam first war, you can kind of do that. It's viable on Agartha for similar reasons because they're so resource capped that just like getting your cap circle early can kind of really
Yeah.
accelerate your expansion a fair bit. Very viable on Marignon. It used to be, I think, like the opinion
Yeah.
that like you kind of needed one. I don't think
Right.
I think people kind of got over that, like, and not good a little bit,
Yeah.
but still very helpful, right? Like, it never hurts to get your Royal Gunner out faster, especially on a map like this where you have a limited cap circle to begin with because you're coastal. So yeah, there's like a bunch of nations that I think all could have taken an Awake monster and like done well with it. So it's kind of interesting that Arithia is the only one that did it. And Arithia is absolutely reaping the rewards. I mean, as you saw up top of the income graph, and because they're hitting these provinces early and getting that gold earlier, they're going to get earlier forts. So I expect to see like on turn like 8 or 9 or so that Arithia is also going to be doing well on research and mage count, just because of this early game like snowball effect that they've got
Yeah.
with that
I
monster.
think. I mean, that sounds exactly right. I mean, eventually, that benefit will go away, right? Like other people will catch up or have more money and get, if they're the same size. But if they can turn that advantage they had into like a more successful first war at a better time, then they can kind of keep that advantage going for them. But I think that for me, that's always one of my hesitations with expanders is that if you sit still too long, then your advantage usually goes away pretty quickly that you had in like good fort timings.
Yeah, I think it's too early to say like what the true advantage is going to be from this expander. But to me, the biggest thing that the
Yeah.
expander gets you is earlier forts. So yeah, we'll have to see how well he is able to take advantage of that. But that said, they have secured that one province that you said was critical
Mhm.
for their war with Atlantis. So I expect that that's going to be their first
Yeah.
port site.
I would not be surprised by that at all. What is this they've got? Oh, they can get nights in an isolated lake. Awesome. These are aquatic and they can't leave.
They can't get the commander version, can they? Yeah, they can't get the
Thug.
commander version, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not good thugs, but you can
Yeah, you
take them
put
out to land, at least, unlike
right.
aquatic units, which you can't.
There's some hilarious.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
not
it's
good.
in the Dominions like Steam community things of like Shark Night thugs. I think that's where they were. I've definitely seen some hilarious ones.
You get a hero, actually, or there's like an event guy that gives you a Shark Knight commander. And then when you get that, like, you always
Right.
kind of want to try to do something with them. So I've absolutely made Shark
Yeah.
Knight thugs. They're really bad.
But they look really cool.
Yeah, they're fun. And they go really fast.
Right.
They go like 20 combat speed on land. Because the game doesn't know that the shark like
Right.
can't swim. So
Yeah.
or on land.
Complicated
Yeah.
ill winter maths. Okay. I mean, I think this is looking. I mean, we finished now all the nations. I think. I do wonder what Marignon's going to do. They've still got. They're not out of the woods yet on expansion, and I feel like they're going to one option is they have enough troops now where they could choose to slam everything into this, and I don't think I would have a complete heart attack, but it's still scary. They could also just go after the Crystal Amazons and then send these guys here. That might be safer.
Oh, so if 2 of those provinces have sites, so they've got the air shaft and they've got the Lake of Reflections. So that's actually kind of cool. That's some bonus gem income. Not quite as impressive as gas
Right.
off path bonuses, but it's something. And Marignon
Yeah,
can absolutely use air gems.
So yeah, that's super cool. All right. Well, I think we'll end it here. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the rest of the expansion goes. Yeah. Thank.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we'll see more messages about potential first
Yeah.
wars. So far, the only one whose mind we know is TNG, who's doing the very lucid thing of securing 3 naps.
That's my. That is, I think, the best opening. Is you get naps with 3 neighbors. The only thing that I think there's to worry about it is just having a nap sometimes isn't enough. Sometimes you actually need at least some of your neighbors in wars. But yeah, I mean, getting 3 naps and then choosing your first war where it's at least going to be a 1v1, maybe somebody else joins your side to make it a 2v1. That's a great opening move in my book.
Yeah, and looking at Midgard's neighbors, there's a lot of people that would be very happy to take advantage of that. Not the least of which is
Yeah.
Agartha.
This is kind of the thing is versus air nations too. This would be a like a great nation for them to eliminate because later in the game they're gonna have Aerofin, they're gonna have air elementals, all sorts of things that you just don't want to fucking deal with this Agartha.
I mean, you say that, but there is no nation in this game that Agartha wants to deal with late game.
Yeah,
Like, like Utgard can do foul vapors and just like various annoying death stuff. And of course, they're a blood nation. You've got Marignon, big blood nation, lots of devils running around. Don't want to deal with that. And of course, they're another air nation, and they've got great cloud effects, which your guys hate. Midgard, as you pointed out, air nation, very annoying. You've got Pythium, natural foul vapors nation. They can hit you very early and be problematic. Like, really, your only like good late game matchup, I would say, is TNG.
yeah, yeah.
But I mean, that's just a problem with Agartha from my perspective, is that it's a nation that just
I think
has
I
issues
think a
dealing with
masked
some of the stronger
crossbow
mid-game battle
do
magic.
okay against casual foul vapors, right? It's once you start doing, like if we think back to last year's finals, the kind of foul vapors that Satis was doing, that's not going to be a huge problem for a big crossbow stack. You remember they were doing it against Ulm, they would like kind of harass him, and then Ulm would run in and kind of kill them. It was the kind of traps that you laid where you're stacking tons of buffs on the
Yeah.
caster, all the people are kitted out in gear. I think those are the things that are going to be more of a problem.
I
And
think
honestly, Utgard's probably going to be the nation. Let me see.
Utgard can absolutely make a foul vapor super combatant with
Yeah.
a nature
Yeah.
random.
So yeah,
Yeah,
this is
that guy.
that was the one I would
Um,
worry about. I wouldn't really
I,
worry. Pythium's going to have real trouble doing.
I have some I have some funny screenshots of one Brody killing
Yeah.
like an entire Atlantean army.
Pythium, though, I mean, you get this guy to do it. This guy's going to have a hard time super combating crossbow.
Uh,
Just going to put that out there.
yeah, no, with nations like Pythium and Sati, you also want that skill
Yeah.
spam to go with it.
But that's the thing is
And
that's where you
Howl,
can have 400
yeah.
crossbows, and it's not really that simple. That like you put up hell vapors, you're going to win. You know.
Yeah, no, so okay, so I'm probably being a little presumptuous with like how easy it is to clear an army, but both of those nations can absolutely put up enough skeletons to make it no problem.
Maybe. I think it comes down to a lot of the positioning and yeah.
The other thing that Pythium can do, which I don't know if this build is set up for, is they can actually do turbo communions.
Sorry.
So the reason that they can is that their mages are sacred that they're using for their communion slaves. So even though they have like low base hit points, you can actually turbo com them with stacking regen. So like you don't get like enormous turbo comms, but you get like actually
Are you talking about
pretty
like
decent
3? Oh
ones.
wait, because you could have regen in the blast, and then you could cast personal regen, so you get 20%. And you could maybe get it where you
Uh
get up to
yeah,
like
you also use I'd have to double check how this is set up, but you can do these really interesting things with the other guys, the
like
death
with soul
mages.
vortex.
No, 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 like it's really just from the bless and because those guys are sacred and enlarge. So you get like you either get 3 or 4 regen per turn. So you make these little like mini turbo columns with like literally 2 slaves, 4 masters.
Okay, I could see that working.
There's some other stuff that you can do with Pythium that's kind of like esoteric.
That's not going to
With
matter
just because they
against
have like
400 crossbows. But
oh yeah, no, that's not what it's good for.
but yeah, I mean, I think the point still stands though that Agartha's got hard matchups, but I would definitely like to kill elves nice and early as them. Like I think it makes all the sense in the world. Like you don't have a foul vapors timing you're really worried about, like Aerofin's farther off. I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to attack Midgard. But I mean, it's also like one of their most open
Yeah,
borders. Like
no, absolutely.
this war with Pythium has all this fucked up terrain in between them. Yeah, this is an open border here with these guys. And then obviously this is a kind of shitty, weird war with the Marignon where they could PD dump or something. So
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to see if I could find the Pythium setup that I was talking about, but no, we can bring it up later
yeah, I mean,
if we get
you
to
can
see something
imagine
along
like
those.
coral swords and some other things. You could maybe get up to like 6 comedian masters or something.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Sai. And
absolutely.
yeah,
Thanks
we'll
for
be
hosting.
back. Tune in next time with turn 6. And hopefully a lot more double expansions and maybe even a few more triple expansions. So see you guys then.